let's take a look at how experimentation can turn into personalization. So the most traditional approach I think most of you are familiar with is actually A/B testing. So you run a test. Here in this case, there are 4 different variations. You want to see which one is the best performing one. You run it, and maybe 2 weeks later you find out, oh, variation D is the best performing one, and that's the one you serve. There's a newer approach which is called multi-armed bandit. I really don't like the word bandit because it sounds like you want to steal something, but that kind of research comes out of slot machines in the 70s. So this is why the name still stuck around. And with multi-armed bandits, it actually learns throughout the experiment which variations are performing better than others. And then it's taking these learnings and it's kind of dynamically allocating the traffic to the ones it's thinking are the best performing ones. And here you can see that it learns quickly that the D variation is the best performing one. And what you here are actually mitigating is regret. This time here, between start and finish of the experiment is called regret, because A, B, and C are not as good as the others, so why are you serving them, right? And here you learn this model quickly, so you can regret this. But for truly personalized design, you need something what is built on top of the multi-armed bandit technology, which is called a contextual bandit, which has feature and context vectors on top, which are fancy names for the user and the kind of attributes of a user and the state of which the user is actually in. State could be like previous behavior, and all of that you're adding to this technology to, in real time, learn what is the best performing variation for each individual customer. And you don't necessarily end up with one winning variation, but you can end up with multiple winning variations. Here you can see in this hypothetical example that the D variation is the best performing one, but only for, I guess, 60% of the audience. So why not serve the other 40% of the audience with the best performing variation or the best fitting variation for them? Just to explain I should have done this in the beginning. This is the time axis here on X, and the Y axis is the percentage of traffic being served to the audience. Let me try to visualize the contextual bandit in a more simplified way. So we have got, on the left side, AI-generated design variations using, in this case, our deluxe technology, and then the contextual bandit to find out what is the best match between these. And then you've got the feedback loop where you learn if that actually is something what you should continue to serve or not. Because we also want to make sure that personalization engines don't put you in a bubble where you cannot get out anymore. Do you know the feeling that if I click this thing here, I'm going to be served this kind of ad forever, and you're like, oh, I won't click this, which is really terrible and not the kind of personalization we're looking for. You have to continuously, it's called explore and exploit. Exploit sounds terrible again, but that's the kind of terminology which is used in machine learning here. You have to continuously explore and exploit the learnings. So in a contextual bandit setup, for instance, it's very common that 10% of the audience get a random variation, while 90% are being exploited on the learnings which have happened before. And then you continue the loop. When we talk about AI, we have to talk about ethics, right? So we want to make sure that we are building artificial technology which is aligned with our ethical values. At Salesforce, we have got something, while we are using a workshop which is being put together by .everyone, a company in the UK, which is called consequence scanning. It's a really cool exercise. So what you do is you are trying to answer 3 questions. What are the intended and the unintended consequences? What are the positive ones you want to focus on? And what are the negative ones you want to mitigate? And then you get this nice quadrant where you can kind of do your brainstorming on and then really see what kind of things you have to look out for, and if the positive ones are actually the ones you are planning for with this kind of application. So yeah, I definitely encourage you to take a look at this link and try this out. It's a really cool workshop, and it's a good exercise for product development in general. It doesn't have to necessarily include AI from my point of view. How this applies to design generation or design automation, if you will, I want to draw here like a little metaphor to the levels of driving automation. I think everybody of you is aware that there are more and more self-driving cars out there, but they are not all here just yet, right? So you could say that the bigger companies are like between 2 and 3, you know? Humans still need to be there, have the wheel whenever necessary, and you cannot start reading a book while sitting in a car and driving just yet. And I think it's similar when we are talking about design automation, right? It's not that we want to automate designers out of a job. The goal here is really to help designers by, through the automation of tedious and repetitive tasks, so that we can free up other time for more interesting work, if you will. So from my point of view, we are currently in this metaphor at like level 2, where we are seeing, or where we are going to start to see the automation of some tedious and repetitive junior designer and also developer tasks, right? Because what's being generated is also coded automatically. And in the future, we might see the level 3, where some automation of tedious and repetitive, more senior designer developer tasks. And I'm really curious to talk about this more later today, what your point of view is on this. My perspective is that the amount of work and the kind of surface area designers have to deal with today keeps actually increasing, right? There are so many channels, and there will be new channels coming up. And I think the only way how we can keep up is by starting to actually automate one of the more repetitive things and focus on the new, more complex areas. The other thing we're using to mitigate potentially negative consequences is that we keep the human in the loop. So simple illustration, we've got the design AI, which is generating variations, and then the user, which could be, for instance, like a marketing specialist, picks the best variations for the personalization engine. And might be that none of these are good, and you go back to manual design, which is also okay, right? But we want to make sure that we keep the human in the loop, and the personalization engine predicts for the customer, using a contextual bandit, for instance, the top prediction, and then the feedback loop continues here. And you learn something, so you start to like actually iterate on the design variations. And the feedback loop doesn't necessarily have to be only implicit, which is working with like instrumentation of data, but it can also be explicit, which means sometimes it's easiest to ask the user when to want, like, what should this look like? Or was this helpful? You see a lot of like thumbs up, thumbs down when you see something. Like, also make sure that you do include the end customer as part of that loop where applicable. All of that we are currently at Salesforce productizing as part of Einstein Designer, powered by Deep Learning UX, and we are currently working with the Marketing Cloud team, just got announced last month, to help with a feature called Einstein Content Selection, which is already doing personalization, but this is taking on the kind of automation of the variations you need for personalization. A lot of Asian. This one here, I didn't plan to put into my deck, but based on the conversation we had earlier, I thought I'd put it in just as a provocation too. So, democratization of design, I said it. In this case, what democratization of design means, today the workflow is that you have, in the B2C space again, marketing specialists collaborating with creative designers, and the back and forth between kind of like giving the brief or what the marketing campaign is about and like receiving the assets you then need to kind of launch your campaign is a process which easily takes days and weeks. And with this like automation of, for instance, banners, we can turn this process down, like cut it down from days and weeks down to minutes, but also start democratizing and actually enable the marketing specialist to do some of those lightweight design work in a more autonomous way. And then have the creative designers free them up to think more about the higher level brand thinking and not cranking out banners. So let me please summarize what I was talking about today. So we believe that with personalized design, we can build relationships by design, all puns intended. The two pieces to personalized design at scale are generative design, where we're automating the tedious repetitive tasks, and that we can start to generate variations for experimentation, which turns into personalization. And on the experimentation side, to start doing more data-driven design and take some of that subjectiveness out of the creative process. And also had a funny story with a customer, also kind of reduce the backseat designing. Some of you might have experienced also, like some people like, I really think we should do it this way, and like, maybe let's just have the data answer what is the right thing to do here, and be less reliant on our intuition. So yeah, no more one size fits all for the experience layer. I think we are just scratching the surface, and I think our thinking is going to develop significantly if we move forward here. But I truly believe that personalization can then lead to more meaningful and bespoke experience, which can delight every customer. Thank you.